Well, good morning. Another day, another beautiful scene here south of Rutland near Clarendon, Vermont. I'm here again to chase the Vermont Railway. I was hoping to chase them down to Bellows Falls, train 263, but that does not appear to be running. It doesn't look like they've run yesterday or the previous day. The same cars that were there 2 days ago when I was last in town are still sitting on the ready track for Bellows Falls. So I'm left to chase the Hoosick Junction train again. If it's the same lineup, then I'll probably switch gears and play it by ear, maybe head to Maine a day early. But if the SD70 is up front, then I will definitely be chasing it. They're getting ready to head out, so let's see for ourselves.
After 4 fun-filled days in Vermont, Wednesday, January 8th meant it was time for me to continue my Railfan road trip into Maine. Therefore, I didn't have a lot of time to wait on RDHJ and decided to skip town after finding out that a leased Jeep would be up front. It was a leisurely drive towards the Pine Tree State via New Hampshire, and the camera didn't come back on until I stumbled into White River Junction.
So, as per usual, I have gotten distracted. On the way to Maine, I passed into White River Junction, which of course meant I needed to go find the New England Central. And what do you know, their GP40 wide cab veterans locomotive is idling out in front of the station. Doesn't get any better than that.
Stretching from the Canadian border into Connecticut, the New England Central has been owned by Genesee and Wyoming since 2012 and recently received one of the company's new camo paint schemes. I love seeing tribute locomotives and think G&W knocked it out of the park with this initiative to honor our nation's armed forces. The town's Amtrak station is paying homage of its own with some B&M equipment on display next door to the NECR. Standing on White River Junction's Amtrak platform, I'm about 800 feet from the Connecticut River and the New Hampshire border. The Vermont rail system will split off the NECR at the station and travel north along the river as subsidiary Washington County Railroad's Connecticut River Division. My impromptu visit was timed perfectly with train WJNP preparing to depart for Newport, so I decided to poke around the nearby Kilowatt Park for a good angle. Walking along the Connecticut was a wonderful way to pass the time by, as today wasn't so much about the trains, but more so enjoying the New England wintertime. I found the tracks at the end of the trail, but decided to continue my walk as WJNP hadn't left town yet. Or at least I thought. The train snuck by as I was getting into my car, and I soon had a chase on my hands near East Thetford. Acquired by the VRS in 2003, the Connecticut River Division is a standalone segment bridging a 100-mile gap between CPKC in Newport and NECR in White River Junction. The line parallels its namesake river for much of the trip and only hosts one train running an endless loop between the two endpoints. Happening upon this train was pure luck, leaving me thankful I'd pulled off the highway in White River Junction. I wanted to keep moving towards Maine, but of course did so via the River Division, which paralleled US 5 and allowed for an easy chase. As this one was spontaneous, I didn't have any locations pre-planned, but rather pulled off at whichever scene I thought looked good. That happened next at the North Thetford boat landing, albeit with little time advantage. matching GP38-2s number 208 and 210 shined bright on this dreary winter afternoon. The Connecticut River Division has a few online customers and serves mainly as a rail bridge, with all 8 of today's cars destined for interchange on the CPKC in Newport for transit into Canada. The train was making quick time, but I was just as quick with only 6 minutes until the third roll-by in Ely. Just 2.5 miles north of Ely and 83 miles south of Newport, the train was slowing for a pit stop at Wings Supermarket. Not much snow on the ground on this side of the river, but I was happy to see the good-looking engines nonetheless. It was the perfect chance for an unplanned photo shoot, as I really like the look of Vermont Rail System's red and white colors and their mountainous logo. I decided to join the crew in refueling at the supermarket, at which point I said farewell to Vermont and continued on my way for Maine. I didn't realize until after the fact how severely I had underexplored the river division, but leaving an area wanting more is always great motivation to plan a return trip. Focusing on the now, I had Waterville, Maine next up on the list, which took me along some insane New Hampshire back roads. That's what's so cool about driving from one remote location to another. The highways aren't of much use, while the local roads really allow for some true exploration. It's crazy to me that the fastest way from Wings Supermarket to Waterville was via a one-lane mountain road, and I was all over it.
All right, a little update. I am in New Hampshire near the town of Franconia on my way from Vermont to Maine. I hung out in White River Junction for about an hour and a half or so, chased the, I think it was WJNP, the Vermont Railways train up to Newport. They just run back and forth on a continuous loop. That was really cool. Had a good looking Jeep on the front, and of course the scenery was wonderful. Like I said, you know, not many trains today. It's about traveling. The trains aren't really the entire point of a trip like this. I love traveling, and I love seeing all the small towns that you never would see if you flew. You wouldn't see if you stuck on the highway. Case in point, I'm in just about the middle of nowhere, and it's absolutely beautiful. I could sit in a lawn chair here for hours and just watch, look, and listen, just like Operation Lifesaver. I'm just ecstatic. I'm looking to get into Waterville, Maine at about 5:30 or 6 p.m. You know, search for some Pan Am locomotives this evening, and then hopefully tomorrow I'll have a productive chase of, you know, whichever MEC train I can find. I'm kind of just gonna wing it and see what the Waterville yard looks like and go from there.
Butter Hill Road in Franconia, New Hampshire was just about as serene as I made it out to be. The Lafayette Brook was babbling under the ice as thick snowfall continued to keep me smiling. I think it's so cool watching water flow through ice like this, but alas, I did have to keep moving if I wanted to make Waterville before it was too late.
I don't know if you can see it, but the snow is coming down heavy. It is legit. Here we are, 2 miles to Franconia, wherever that is. But I mean, you can't tell me this isn't just absolutely amazing scenery, right?
There were times when I couldn't believe I voluntarily took this trip, as the wintry conditions were almost impassable had I not been confident in my driving. Adrenaline helped the confidence, fueled by yet another awesome find. Nestled in the town of Gorham on the St. Lawrence and Atlantic Railway, I was excited to find some old rolling stock freezing their bells off. It was 3:40 p.m. and I only had 2 trains to show for the day, but it had still been a blast. I can't say enough how much I enjoy casual travel. I had no idea this outdoor museum existed, complete with a Boston and Maine F7, rolling stock from the Grand Trunk Western and Central Vermont, plus a GTW steamer. How cool. It was a relaxing day on the road with no expectations. White River Junction, Gorham, and now a scenic overlook had all been pure bonuses. With Maine getting ever closer, I couldn't help pulling over for a view of Mount Cleveland, but continued to press on as the Pine Tree State was my overarching railfan goal of the trip.
What a day. It's just after 8:30 p.m. and I have finally made it to Bangor, Maine. I'm unfortunately about 2 decades too late to see the Bangor and Aroostook Railroad, but tomorrow is definitely going to make up for it. I started in Burlington, Vermont around 6 a.m. and then drove down to Rutland before bouncing over to White River Junction for some NECR and a quick chase of the Vermont up towards Newport. I then drove through New Hampshire towards Waterville, Maine, where I poked around for about an hour and saw CSX with some of their Tier 4 SD40s. Those locomotives have GE engines inside of them with the giant Tier 4 radiators. They're awfully weird looking engines, but still pretty cool to see. I also saw some Eamskip containers in Waterville. I always love finding international containers where I feel like they don't belong, and the intermodal ramp in Waterville, Maine kind of feels like it fits the bill. My main goal was to try and see some Pan Am locomotives. I saw a Guilford wide cab in the deadline and some Pan Am engines switching a nearby industry, but of course there's no video evidence. Tomorrow is going to completely make up for it though, as I plan to chase J.D. Irving's NBM railways throughout Maine. I'm going to start in Brownville Junction, about an hour north of Bangor, and go wherever the giant green SD70s take me. That requires an early wake-up call though, so I'm going to attempt to overcome the excitement and get to bed.
Much like the ones before it, my expedition into the far north illustrated one of my favorite aspects of these trips. Just 1 hour prior, I thought I was going to be spending the night in Waterville for some action on the Pan Am, but couldn't shake the excitement of chasing the NBM railways. Thus, I decided to turn one day into 2 on the sister short lines, and was beyond excited to get started the next morning. Thanks for railfanning and road tripping with me today. I hope you're as excited for the NBM as I was.